any advice that is given, understand who's giving the advice and why are they giving the advice.
Mike, thank you so much for joining our team at the Kenyan Wall Street today.
Pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about Enza Capital.
Enza Capital is a multi-stage venture capital fund backing founders and teams using technology to solve large, meaningful problems across Africa. Enza is Zulu. It means to build, to make, and to create. And when I say multi-stage, we invest from pre-seed, first check into a founder, through to Series B. Typically between $250K up to $5 million on the first investment. So we're investing in fintech, health, human capital, logistics, climate smart businesses.
Okay, and right now, there's a lot of different subsectors across Africa's technology industry, the startup industry. What particular subsectors, you mentioned a few already, are you keenly focused on at the moment?
So, we are generalists, in fact, and we believe that we do need to develop depth of expertise in certain sectors. So in fintech, for example, a lot of people say they invest in fintech or they're investing in non-fintech businesses, but ultimately most businesses that are making money will have to have money coming into the platform and leaving the platform. And ultimately they do become in some way a fintech in the education space or the health space, be it payments or other things. So we do think that business to business or enterprise level financial solutions are very important for both small businesses as well as larger ones to manage their finances, to track their data, and to increase access to capital that they wouldn't have otherwise if they weren't properly recording and tracking their financial information.
Okay, and you're a very prominent investor here in Nairobi.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I'll take it.
What companies have you been investing in recently?
So the most recent, there's a slightly later stage company that we invested in Kenya quite recently called Kauffman. It's a business that has changed the way that Kenyans, not just in Nairobi, but in rural and peri-urban areas, are able to access the products that we take for granted because of our proximity to mass kind of retail and distribution, right? So people are typically penalized by living far from an urban area where there are the efficiencies. And Kauffman has done a fantastic job creating access at a fair price and building a very real and a very good business. I think it's almost 2% of M-Pesa transactions in Kenya are through Kauffman.
Okay. Now, for a young entrepreneur who's just now starting their company, their vision, what advice do you have for them?
Look, I think as an entrepreneur, a lot of people will give you advice. So do take heed and listen to what people say. Some people may give you something that they believe is fact, but it might not be right for you. So that's the first thing. And any advice that is given, understand who's giving the advice and why are they giving the advice. Is it selfless? Is it selfish? And ensure that the advice that is being given is really to enable you to be the best that you can be. Now, given that, this is, more selfless than anything else. I think as an entrepreneur who's starting out, be very clear on your why. So why are you the best person to be solving this problem? Why are you going to dedicate everything you can to make this business work? Why is it going to be you rather than anyone else who's already started working on this or who may start working on this after you? Why are you going to be the person? What is that why? I think that's the most important thing. It's a question I ask colleagues, when we're hiring. So as we recruit, it's like, why do you want to work for a firm like ours? Why do you want to do this? We also ask our entrepreneurs, why are you building in this space? Aside from the why, it is if you want venture-backed funding. I don't think every business needs venture capital. I think too many founders believe that raising venture capital is success. And I think beautiful, fantastic businesses can be built without venture money. Maybe you build business off of revenues. Maybe you raise debt. Maybe you access bank debt. So venture capital is not the end all, the be all. So as an entrepreneur, also think about what sort of capital you should be accessing. And it's not just the equity venture capital that we read about in the press. And then if you want to build something big, look at the opportunity. How big can this get? And if you have gaps in your experience, in your knowledge set, and your skill set, who are you surrounding yourself with that complements this list? And if you're able to build a team that is comprehensive, that complements your weaknesses and those gaps that you have, then you have a very high chance of at least making it to a first step and a next step, and you're going to learn. And you need to be the fastest one to learn, faster than anyone else building the market, and you need to be very hungry to learn. You need to love to learn. And I think those are some pieces of advice that I would share.
And what are you hoping to get out of your experience this week at the Kaufman Fellows Summit?
So I'm in class 28. So class 28 is the most recent Kaufman Fellow class. So it's something that's been around for 28 years. And I've been telling people this is the first time that the Kaufman Fellowship has come to Africa. And to be in this class, to be based in and living in Nairobi, and to be part of the organizing committee and one of the hosts bringing everyone here, it's fantastic to see that the global perception of what Africa is changing, and that Kaufman is playing a key role in shifting that narrative, right? And in that perception. And specifically for people who are responsible for billions of dollars of capital, which the Kaufman Fellows are. I think it's over, I'm not going to say the wrong number. It's a very large number.
Couple hundred billion.
I think it's 300 billion. And so one of the things that we did at the start of the program was say, what do you want to get out of it? So this is answering your question. I want to have investors who've never come to Africa before, who've never considered it a viable market, who've only ever thought about it as a rounding error, as something insignificant. I want for them to be shocked and surprised at the potential, at the excitement, at the talent. And I want that to be the beginning for them and the people who they work with, the people who they know, the beginning of a journey that brings them back to the continent, brings capital to the continent, and changes the global perception of Africa as a place that is just challenges and disease-ridden and war and poverty to one that is full of optimism and full of opportunity and potential and dynamism. And that's really what I want to achieve from my time here.
Okay. Now to finish us up today, we have just a few quick personal questions for you, if you don't mind.
The camera's dead though. Are we actually going to use this? Yeah. Okay.
You can.
All right. Sorry. Okay.
When you were first starting your career, what did you spend your first paycheck on?
My first paycheck, I still have part of the first dollar I ever made. It's framed, and it's a half of a dollar because I ripped it and I shared it with the guy who I made it with. And my first career, if I could call it that, was as a magician. And you are considered a professional magician if you make more than 70% of your income from magic. And because I was about 11 years old, first doing it for free up to the point where I was making $80 an hour for a kid like almost 30 years ago, that's a lot. And I remember the first time I did a trick and someone gave me money and I realized that I could monetize it. It was quite an important realization, and I did keep that dollar. So I still have half of that dollar. I didn't spend it. I saved it.
Okay. Now, if I were to open your Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, what genres would I see there?
Oh, this is embarrassing. My kind of annual review is something, everyone shares their annual review. I'm very embarrassed to share mine because I tend to listen to a high-intensity interval training workout mix when I run and when I work out. And the thing is, I do that more consistently than I just chill and listen to music or kind of, set an ambiance music or for a dinner party or something. But I listen to a lot of classical music. I listen to a lot of Afro beats. I listen to a lot of hip hop. And I listen to a lot of funk and disco and soul. But Spotify says I listen to a lot of high intensity interval stuff.
Okay. And what's your favorite meal?
Growing up, my favorite meal was fufu, which is a Ghanaian meal as a chicken light soup. And it was something that from the age of 5 to 18, I grew up in California. But it was still a flavor that I loved. It's something I adored. What is my favorite meal now? I guess I don't have one. I think if it's a meal shared with friends, it's a meal where you're having good conversations with smart people, kind people. And I don't think it's about the food. It's about the people who I eat it with.
Mike, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.